write an explicit formula for the sequence. So they give us this sequence. So we're working backwards basically on this problem. They're giving us the results. So in other words, this is a sub 1. This term is a sub 2. This term is a sub 3. This is a sub 4. This is a sub 5. This is a sub 6, etc. In other words, this is what we get when we plug in n equals 1 to some formula. And this is what we get when we plug n equals 2 in to some formula. This is what we get when we plug in n equals 3, n equals 4, n equals 5, and n equals 6 to some formula. What is that formula? Well, first off, notice that the sign keeps switching. Starts negative, then it's positive. Then negative, then positive. Negative, positive. What's going to make a sign switch back and forth? Let me just tell you that one. Sign switching. It's either going to be minus 1 to the n or minus 1 to the n plus 1. Let me prove it to you. If you plug in 1 here, you're going to get minus 1 to the 1, which is just minus 1. If you plug in 1 here, you'll get minus 1 to the 1 plus 1, minus 1 squared, which is plus 1. See how this 1 on the left starts out negative, the 1 on the right positive. Let's go to n equals 2. If you plug in n equals 2, you get minus 1 squared, which is plus 1. If you do the other one, you plug in 2 to the n plus 1, you get minus 1 to the third, which is negative 1. So maybe I'm confusing you, but do you see, you're either going to use this formula if you want to start negative, or you're going to use this other formula if you want to start positive. See how this one starts off positive, and this one starts out, and the blue one starts out negative. And then they switch back and forth. Let me do one more just to prove they're just going to continue to switch back and forth. If I do n equals 3, minus 1 to the third, 3 negatives is negative, whereas over here, minus 1 to the 3 plus 1. You're plugging into the formula n plus 1. That's minus 1 to the fourth. 4 negatives is positive. So do you see how both sequences are switching back and forth, right? Negative, positive, negative, and the orange one as well. Positive, negative, positive. Just going to keep switching back and forth. So both these formulas, this formula here, well, both this formula and this formula, they're both going to do the sign switching you need. It's just, do you want to start out negative or do you want to start out positive? Because they can give you either kind of question. We want to start negative, don't we? So we want this formula. So that's part of the deal. That's part of the deal. It's only part of it. So that's our first part. So we're going to go here with the, because we start negative, we're going to use negative 1 to the n. This formula here, which starts negative. Okay, now that'll take care of the sign switching, the negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive business. Now, what about the numbers, though? How are we going to get this 1/7, 1/8, 1/9, 1/10? So, in other words, think with me on this. You can probably figure this out. I want some kind of formula that I can plug in n equals 1, and I'll get a 7 on the bottom, 1 over 7. Plug in n equals 2 to something, and I'll get an 8 on the bottom. Plug in 3, get a 9. Plug in 4, get a 10. Plug in 5, get an 11. Plug in 6, get a 12. What's the relationship between the 12 and the 6, or the 11 and the 5? How much bigger is the number on the bottom? 10 and 4. It's always 6 bigger, isn't it? This number on the bottom is the n plus 6. N plus 6. N plus 6, isn't it? Do you see that? It's whatever the n is. 4 plus 6 makes 10. Or 5 plus 6 makes 11. Or 6 plus 6 makes 12. All of these will come about by n plus 6. Even for 1, 1 plus 6 is 7. 2 plus 6 is 8. 3 plus 6 is 9, etc. See how it works? So my formula then is negative 1 to the n times 1 over n plus 6. There's the formula. Do you see how both those parts together, this part will make the sign switch, negative, positive, starting negative. And this part will make the 1/7, 1/8, 1/9, right? Let's check it out. Let's prove it. If I plug in n equals 1 to this formula, what am I going to get? Minus 1 to the 1 over 1 plus 6, which is negative 1 times 1/7, which is negative 1/7. That indeed is our first term, negative 1/7. If I plug in n equals 2, what do I get? Negative 1 into this formula times 1 over 2 plus 6, which is positive 1 times 1/8. That's positive 1/8, which indeed that is our second term, etc. See how this formula is working perfectly to crank out those terms.